Meeting to order. Calling this meeting to order. Can you please rise to the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. The meeting of July 24th, 2023 was included in a list of meetings notice sent to the Hunter Range County Democrat and Courier News on January 5, 2023, posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall on that date, and has remained continuously posted as required. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the borough. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilman Johnston is absent.
Right now it is.
Yep. Councilman Parker.
Here.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Here.
Councilwoman Engelhardt.
Here.
Council Vice President Tilly.
Here.
Council President Long.
Here.
And Mayor Count.
Here.
We have a forum.
Thank you. We're starting with presentations. We do have a free presentation from Stephen Sullivan of Walentz Attorneys at Law, discussing joining the class action lawsuit regarding Forever Chemicals. Can you make him a panelist so that he can speak to the council on this topic?
Oh, it's quite dark.
Yeah.
Are you able to see me?
Sort of.
Yeah.
You look red.
You look orange.
I'm not quite sure why. Oh, there we go. I guess the camera had to warm up a little bit.
Okay, so it's your show.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out. I guess the first question is, who am I? I'm an attorney with Walentz, Goldman and Spitzer out of Red Bank, New Jersey. My partner, John Keefe, and I have been involved in what's known as either the PFAS litigation, PFAS, or AFFF litigation, which is AFFF, out of South Carolina now for about 4 to 5 years. And what we have been litigating is the contamination of water supplies as well as personal injuries related to the PFAS, which is a family of man-made chemicals. You may have heard about them in the news as being forever chemicals. And that's really where the difficulty is. When the chemicals get into the environment, they don't naturally break down. They go through the soil very quickly into the water system and then go up through the water system, and people are exposed to them either through personal use or otherwise. We're representing municipalities across the state and actually nationally, trying to recuperate costs associated with improvements to the water facilities now, the upgrades to water facilities to remove the PFAS. And in particular, we're talking about PFOA and PFOS, which are 2 chemicals within the PFAS family. I know Flemington also has now come, unfortunately, to understand that it has a PFAS issue. When we first started the litigation, the only standard was the EPA standard, which was 70 parts per trillion. And about 3 years ago, maybe slightly more, the New Jersey DEP announced a new standard of 13 parts per trillion for PFOS and 14 for PFOA, which still was above what many towns had to worry about with trying to improve their facilities. The change occurred this past March, when the EPA announced its new standard or new standards of proposed standards of 4 parts per trillion. Now, while it's still in the public comment portion of evaluation, we expect that the EPA will finalize the rules and that the new governing standard across the country is going to, again, be that 4 parts per trillion for both PFOA and PFOS. So how does that affect Flemington? Now, in your most recent water tests have both come up above that standard. So you're going to have a particular amount of time by both DEP and the EPA to improve your water standards, which will require likely changes to your water systems, upgrades to your water systems, whether it be a GAC system, a GAC system, or some other system, which are not inexpensive systems. That's just the way they are. And that evaluation is going to be by engineers who are very well aware and understanding of the systems and issues associated with them. Again, where we come into play is we have brought suit against the manufacturers of these chemicals, the PFOA and PFOS, particularly 3M, down in the District of South Carolina, and are seeking compensation for water providers, which again would include those water providers that either have paid out already for upgrades to their treatment facility or are going to have to do it in the future. And there's various economic portions that we look at. One would be the pre-engineering, permitting, et cetera costs. Then there's the actual construction, and then there's the future operation and maintenance that all comes into it. And we work with the town's engineering professionals to understand the needs and more particularly the costs of those systems. One question is why isn't the District of South Carolina instead of New Jersey? Most of the litigation involving PFAS and AFFF, by again a little background, AFFF is a firefighting foam that was created by 3M for Class B fires, the oil fires, which are not easily put out by water alone. Wonderful product, AFFF. The problem is it contains the PFOA and PFOS. So a lot of the litigation was occurring within the different districts of the federal court system. Because of the number of cases involved, the federal court system created what's called an MDL, a multi-district litigation, where they consolidated all the litigation into one court for pre-management pre-trial management, excuse me, and chose the District of South Carolina. So currently, most of the litigation in the country is being managed by Judge Gergel, Gergel, down in the District of South Carolina. And there's different types of claims. There's personal injury claims, the firefighters and the service members that were exposed, as well as water providers that have to now clean the water. Judge Gergel has control over all the different aspects. Why now why we think Flemington should consider is that there have been, and you may have seen it in the news, there have been some proposed resolution of claims against 3M and the DuPont entities. So the particular amounts are still generally being worked through, but it looks like 3M has agreed to pay $12 billion over a period of time of about 10 to 12 years. And DuPont is 1.2 billion. At the beginning, it was mentioned about joining a class action. These claims are all filed individually. So the other water providers that we represent, we have filed individual claims in the District of South Carolina. We can direct file because of case management orders. We would file similarly an individual claim for Flemington if we were retained and we determined it was in the best interest of Flemington to file the claim. Even though there are these proposed settlements by 3M and DuPont, they are at the initial stages of review by the court. There's going to be opportunity for parties to make comment about the settlements, oppose the settlements, and whether or not they are approved by the court is going to be over a several month period of time. If the court does approve, there's going to be then a claims process, which is several different forms that would have to be worked through by a town or a water provider that wants to make or receive some recovery from the settlements. Even then, there are still other defendants in the case. So even though 3M may settle, be finally approved for settlement, there are still active litigations against the other defendants in the cases. So that's why when we first spoke with Mr. Long about Flemington's involvement, time may be of the essence. And the reason being is that a lot of these settlements are going to be tied to different factors, including when one filed a complaint in the action or in the MDL. And there are certain additional benefits to being what's called a litigant party versus a settlement party. So we've spoken to our clients and we, advise them that now is the time to get in. There have been some clients that have waited on the sidelines, so to speak, to see how the litigation went forward. And then when these settlements started rolling in, they became interested in becoming involved. And that's the general background of the litigation. We are representing the different municipalities and water providers on what's called a contingency fee basis, which means that we will forward the upfront litigation costs. A little bit of a difference between engineering and litigation costs. So the costs that the town would incur in hiring a firm to decide what type of system is best, and then your permitting for the system and whatever other related expenses, those are going to be incurred by Flemington. If we hire an expert to do some other type of work related to that, that would be our costs. But we will not recover either our costs or our fees unless we make a recovery for Flemington. If at the end of the day, for whatever reason, we're not going to turn around then issue a bill to Flemington saying, here's how much time we spent on the case and here's our hourly and you owe it to us. So the risk is put upon us on the initial burden.
I have a number of questions. Can you tell us what other clients you have in New Jersey?
Sure. We represent as part of a plaintiffs group, New Jersey American Water, which is the largest private water provider in New Jersey. We also represent different municipalities, including Passaic Valley Water Commission, the Borough of Ramsey, the Borough of Park Ridge, Lakewood Township Municipal Utility Authority, Oakland Township, the Borough of Oakland. We are in the process of being retained by other municipalities that are, again, similarly in Flemington's place. I think in total right now, our firm is representing somewhere between 10 and 15 municipalities and additional water providers such as, again, Lakewood and Passaic Valley Water Commission, as well as New Jersey American Water. And we actually represent, as part of this plaintiffs group, we represent New Jersey American Water, not only for its New Jersey company, but its other entities throughout the country. And we've been representing New Jersey American Water for, again, approximately 4 to 5 years. We began representing them down at their Penns Grove facility, which was contaminated by DuPont, and it's expanded since.
What's your contingency?
It's 1/3 of our recovery after costs.
After costs.
Right. So a very simple model. If we recover $100 and our costs are $10, we subtract our $10 out. And whatever is left, we then take our percentage and the remainder goes to Flemington.
So back in the day, I have a memory that it used to not be legal for municipalities to do litigation under a contingency basis. Did that change? We're talking 15 years ago.
I will say that I'm not aware of any restriction, and no previous municipality has brought that up.
That's why I remember things that other people don't. So
yeah, and I've not heard of that issue coming up, and we've also not particularly towards this, but when we've also, our firm, specifically John Keefe and I, have represented, including the state, on, for example, natural resource damage claims. We've done it on a contingency fee basis. So I'm not aware of any particular provision within, for example, the Tort Claims Act or otherwise, that would prevent a municipality from hiring a law firm on a contingent basis.
Take a look at that issue if you'd like, Mayor.
do you have any?
I seem to remember, as you remember, Mayor, but these guys are out there in the boat doing it. So I don't mind taking a quick look at it. I don't know that it should hold anything up, but
Okay.
I'll review it.
All right. Does any members of the council, Council President, you have any questions?
No.
Councilman Moll? I'm sorry, Councilman Parker?
No.
Councilman Rossetti?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Councilwoman Tilly? Councilwoman Engelhardt?
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan, you had mentioned something called a GAC system. that GAC, GAK?
Yeah, there's there's a lot of acronyms in environmental world. So it's an acronym for granular activated carbon. It's a type of system where it absorbs, there's either adsorption with a D or a B. This is adsorption. So it's a method to remove the chemicals. What the engineers will do, what the engineers will do is they'll evaluate which type of system. There's also an anion system, which is more expensive, which may be considered, but the GAC right now seems to be, and again, I'm an attorney, not an engineer, but most of the systems being installed are GAC systems. What always is the balance is that a GAC system has the carbon, and that medium at some point has to be either recycled by the township or purchased new. And that's part of the operation and maintenance that occurs afterwards. So when you're evaluating with an engineer, what you need to look at, again, are those three areas of cost: are the initial upfront costs of evaluating the system, then putting in the system, and what it's going to cost in the future. Because the future is not only the additional labor and maintenance, but also the cost of the carbon itself. What we expect, again, not knowing completely, but what the reality is that this was, New Jersey has, unfortunately, a lot of PFAS contamination. But there were a lot of other states that were not on the forefront, like New Jersey, and in being challenged by and also responding to this new type of contamination. Once the EPA standard goes through, which again we expect it to go through, it's now going to be all jurisdictions in the United States that are going to have the same issue. So whether you're in New Jersey, North Dakota, California, if you're over the 4 parts per trillion standard, and I'm only speaking of PFOA and PFOS, there's a third mixture standard where they take other 5 types of PFAS, and if you put them together and equal 1, you still have to clean that as well. But now it's going to be other jurisdictions even outside New Jersey. So you have to definitely weigh and take into account the operations and maintenance when you're looking at a total budget.
If we sign on with you, what is our financial requirement as far as engaging an engineer to do work? Are we required to under this agreement?
The financial requirement for the litigation is part of the contingency element. So any cost related to the actual litigation, it will be borne by us compared to the engineering costs. So I'll be hypothetical. I'll do it in very simple numbers. If the cost of an engineer to come in and look at your systems and propose to you a GAC system, for example, and it's going to the cost of that is $5, and then permitting is going to be an additional $1. That $6 are costs that we would try to recover as part of the litigation, but are not costs that we would front. Now,
are we required to do that for this litigation? Are we required to bring an engineer and do an analysis of what system?
Well, I think the answer is, as part of the litigation, if you become involved in a litigation, for us to recover costs, I think the answer is yes. There's going to have to be an evaluation. And again, because of where Flemington is now, if tomorrow, and not to sound overly facetious, but if tomorrow Flemington comes out with new water results and they're under 4 parts per trillion, you're meeting the standard and you're not going to have to upgrade. But right now, where Flemington is, there is going to have to be some upgrade, likely, unless an engineer has another idea, to get within the 4 parts per trillion. So that's something that Flemington is likely going to have to explore anyway, whether it is maybe first speaking internally with your own water department, if there is some way to get under the 4 parts per trillion standard. If not, then you're likely going to have to consult with an outside engineering firm. Again, I'm not an engineer. I'm not an environmental specialist, environmental engineer. So that's likely an initial expense that you as Flemington are going to have to incur to meet that standard, the current standard. Again, right now, Flemington, if I remember correctly, is under the New Jersey standards of 13/14 parts per trillion. It's the 4 parts per trillion that is the new sensitive standard for a lot of towns, not just Flemington, but a lot of towns in New Jersey that realize they're going to have to meet this new standard.
Councilwoman Engelhardt, do you have any other questions?
No, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr.
So the procedure,
One second.
I
I'm
do
sorry.
know- So, Mr. Sullivan, why wouldn't a town sign on to this? What would be a reason that a town wouldn't want to? What are the drawbacks?
without sounding too much like a salesperson, I don't know of any drawbacks because it is a contingency fee agreement. If there, right now, we're not aware of any reasons why the town would not want to do it. It is something where the initial costs, again, are borne by our law firm. If at some point we come to learn or the Flemington comes to learn of a reason why not to continue, then we can have that discussion, and it always remains Flemington's authority to withdraw from a litigation. Then that even presupposes that we do file a complaint.
How
But
many,
right now, I'll take the example of the 3M. So as I mentioned before, every case originally was filed as an individual claim. This was more described as not a class action, but a mass tort. Judge Gergel assigned, designated certain individuals on both sides, the defense side and the plaintiff side, to start to negotiate certain resolutions of claims. As part of that, there is now a proposed, to get everybody under the same umbrella, there is a proposed settlement which would include a class action component. So at some point, 3M or actually the plaintiffs group has already filed what's called preliminary approval. At some point, if the court approves preliminary approval, notice will go out to every municipality. So Flemington, for example, will receive notices from the District of South Carolina indicating that there's a proposed settlement in place. And whether you want to participate or not, you may still be bound by that decision if Flemington does not opt out. But as to the general question about what are the downsides, I don't see any downside. I'm not aware of any.
active plaintiffs are there nationwide in this suit? Approximately.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
How many plaintiffs are there in the class, or the proposed class, I guess, nationwide? I mean,
I'm not sure the exact amount. There were likely about I would estimate probably about 1,000 water providers that had filed claims, but this will involve a much larger group, and I've not taken the time to count all the potential water providers across the country that now may be included within this. There are 2 separate groups actually involved. So all water providers, whether you have a contamination or not, are going to be included within these proposed settlements. And there's 2 breakdowns. One is where you have had testing above 4 parts per trillion, and one where you've not. So it initially starts off with whether you're in group A or group B, but it includes every water provider, whether private or public, with limited exceptions. For example, if you are a state entity. So the state of New Jersey may not be included, and there's some certain other exceptions, but it's going to include every water provider across the 50 states and territories, etc.
I mean, the Willan's firm is well known to me as being on the front lines of these types of litigation. Is this similar, would you say, to the litigation that took place with I think it was opioids recently, where there were members of a class, the class proceeded, a settlement was proposed, and then all the municipalities who weren't in the class got a letter saying, do you want to opt in now?
There are similar characteristics. The opioid litigation also began as individual claims. And because of the number of municipalities involved and the overall potential liability, ultimately it was resolved again for each defendant, and it's still continuing because there's more defendants out there that are involved, but it then settled on a class basis. And part of the same, again, the same time triggers exists in opioid, that the plaintiffs who had filed earlier received a greater benefit than those that became essentially settlement townships and municipalities afterwards.
You should describe what that benefit is.
I'm sorry?
For the council, I think you should describe what that benefit is. The greater benefit of being in now as opposed to.
Well, yeah, for example, with 3M, I don't think there are certain types of there's a baseline calculation formula that the settlement involves, and it's based upon various certain variables. The amount of if I remember correctly, in particular, the volume of water that is used. And then there are additions that may be added to what a municipality may receive. The one variable that Flemington, at least as to 3M and DuPont, would not be eligible for is the litigation bump. And that's based just upon timing. If Flemington, for example, had been in the litigation a year ago, it may be eligible for the litigation bump, which would add some percentage. What that percentage is, we don't know yet. The actual formula has not been fully vetted and provided to us, so there's still elements that are being worked on. But the formula for the initial formula is based primarily upon an EPA evaluation of the cost of upgrades to a facility, or the likely cost that a municipality may face for upgrading a facility. So again, if Flemington were to engage an engineer, the engineer would likely use that formula at least as an initial baseline for determining what the potential cost may be for an upgrade. Whether it, again, what type of system is used is dependent upon the size of the facility, whether an addition can be made to that facility, as well as the level of contamination. Thankfully, Flemington is not talking about a contamination in the hundreds or thousands of parts per trillion, which is a much more significant number. You're closer to the 4 parts per trillion, but you would still, it's still not an insignificant number. It can be and again, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but the cost could be into the millions of dollars between engineering costs, upgrade costs, and then what I have seen is the future O&M over a 20 to 30 year period for the life cycle of the facility could be equal to what it costs, if not more than what it costs to actually put in the facility.
So if the borough were to join this lawsuit, or seek to join this lawsuit by resolution approved by the council, would they be considered a litigation plaintiff or a settlement plaintiff if we did this today?
Well, the terms we use for litigation and settlement, they're not using those particular terms in, for example, the 3M settlement. But for purposes of where Flemington would fall on 3M, it would not get the litigation bump. That said, there are other defendants in the case that have not resolved their claims yet. So, for example, Tyco is another substantial defendant. There has been no settlement in that case. So, to the extent that there is again, everything is based upon the actual agreement and the timing of it. If Tyco settles, I'm going to again start this hypothetical. We file a claim for Flemington this week by Friday, and on Wednesday of next week there's an announced resolution, and they set the date as Wednesday for the resolution. If Tyco has a litigation bump, depending upon when they set it, Flemington may be able to, or may be eligible for that. But not every settlement is guaranteed to have that litigation bump. It's particular to every settlement. And the way it's going right now is there's not a global resolution of all claims against all defendants at one time. There's independent negotiations going on for each defendant.
Forgive me if I'm making you repeat yourself, but what is the value, the present value of the 3M litigation, total?
The announced amount is approximately $12 billion that will be paid out over a 10 to 12 year period. So there's certain, within the agreement, there's certain payout, there's certain payout dates. And it's when those payouts are going to be dependent partially upon what they're for and what group they're for.
All right, that's all I have, Mayor.
So, Mr. Christine, do you see a problem with doing this? Or you should go into an executive session at the end of the meeting and discuss it under potential litigation and come out and.
Well, I always think it's best to discuss anything like this in executive session. That being said, the Wilentz firm is well known to me, is very credible and competent in this area. Have a lot of experience. I mean, if it's the will of the council, I don't have an issue, but I think it should certainly be discussed in executive.
The only other thing I would add is the question of, okay, so hypothetically, we resolve to retain Wilentz, what do we do from there? So we've reviewed your initial publicly available water results. So we have a basic understanding. We will then reach out to point people, whether it be individuals within the water department or otherwise, to start gaining additional understanding and information. There's what's called a plaintiff fact sheet. So every plaintiff in the MDL has to answer similar questions, written questions about their facility. And they're very common sense. It's the who, what, where's, and when, so that we have that information. Before that, we would file a complaint. And again, hypothetically, if we were to have the retainer filed or, sent back to us this week, within 1 or 2 days, we'd have the complaint filed. So we would move very quickly to get Flemington filed in the MDL. We then have 98 days afterwards from the filing of the complaint to serve our plaintiff fact sheet. So we would start speaking early on with the appropriate people of knowledge to get what we need to fill out the plaintiff fact sheet, and we'll go then back and forth on that. Those are the immediate steps.
So, should the council do this, I would, so we have a very, very competent water department to answer questions. They are public employees, but prior to you contacting our engineer, which is under an hourly rate, I would ask that you go through me so that we know exactly what kind of cost we would be incurring now.
One of my first emails will be, I look forward to working with everyone, and please advise me who I should be using as my contact person. I'm not going to just, I never just pick up a phone and scare somebody saying, hi, I'm an attorney. I want information from you. I like to have the council or somebody else lay the groundwork so that there's no shock of, again, that phone call from me.
So, and like I said, our water department can probably answer 98% of your questions.
I don't disagree. We try to minimize the impact on the individual. So if there are particular documents we know we're going to need, whether it's the water test results, a lot of it we've already been able to gather, but what we don't have, we just say these are the documents we need. We try to get through those documents, and if there's other information that we can't get from those documents, then we make the phone call and we set up during working hours at the appropriate times, either a phone call or a Zoom call just to get the additional information.
Council President, since you brought this forward, do you have a problem waiting, going into an executive session at the end of the meeting and doing this resolution after a discussion with our attorney, or do you want to do it now?
I mean, I'm comfortable doing it right now.
I think
Unless there's
Susan?
anyone,
What's the matter?
Susan raised her hand.
I didn't hear what Jeremy said.
Yeah, I can't hear what you guys are saying either.
I think
said-
you're just talking too fast.
Oh.
Try to talk into the mics as well, better. Like
that I would
this.
have a problem doing this right now, if we were square with that.
I'm still can't hear.
Can you hear me, Ken?
Now I can hear you, Marcia.
Now I can hear Marcia better, but before it wasn't as good.
What about now? Yeah. Like I said, I was fine moving forward.
You were fine moving forward, you said?
Whether or not he wanted to go into an executive session,
Oh.
discuss it and come out at the end to, to pass the resolution. After discussing with our attorney, he said he felt comfortable doing it now.
I frankly would prefer to get, Terry at, Remington's kind of feedback on this first, as well as, maybe our water department before we took any action. So I don't necessarily know if it's appropriate to go into executive session before we get
I
both
did-
Remington and the water department's feedback.
I spoke with Josh and I spoke with my campaign about it. And they were like, yeah, they were fine with it. So I didn't.
And has Remington been asked as well?
Now,
I'd like to hear their feedback on it. The comment that I was gonna make was I just wanted to, I think it's important that we assure the public that the quality of our water has not gone down and the contamination amount, parts per billion, parts per trillion has not gone up. It's the way that the federal government counts them has changed. Like 20 years ago, it changed from 70 to, 13, 14, and now they're changing it again. So I want to make sure that's clear to the public that there's been no recent change in contamination or increase in contamination of our water. Our water is the same as it was 20 years ago. But the way that they calculate these family of man-made chemicals has changed over the years.
is that what you're looking for Remington to weigh in on? Because Josh can
No,
weigh in.
I wanted Remington to weigh in on the, if Remington were here right now, I would ask Terry or his equal about the systems specifically the GAC system that Mr. Sullivan had mentioned versus the other option that he had mentioned as far as what the engineers in our world right now are recommending to their other clients in regards to installation of systems of this sort in the future. Because I'm sure we're not the only municipality that's looking at this EPA mandate coming down the pipeline, and we're not the only municipality asking Remington or their appropriate engineers of record, how are we going to deal with this if and when the EPA changes the parts per trillion again?
Asking them about their opinion on which system, but that has very little
Well,
to
the
do.
cost, I guess the amount of money we get out of this lawsuit is supposed to be in direct relation to how and what kind of a system we'd have to install in the future, no? So that's how I'm connecting the two.
Well, I see, I think I understand what you're saying, but it's a matter of, like, let's say the system is $1 million just because it's an easy number. So if we end up with, $630 or $666,000 at the end of litigation, or $500,000, it's more than we would have had because it's still going to cost the same $1 million.
Yeah, I understand that. I just think that I always like asking my engineers first.
So I understand what you're saying, and I don't have a problem talking to, because Josh probably already has a good idea about what we need to do. And
Yeah.
so, but that's not, the litigation is really a policy decision for the council to decide. The system is more of a professional recommendation from Josh and Terry. That's all. So I think it's really whether you want to engage with Wilentz to pursue and see if we get anything, versus, we already have nothing, right? Nobody's giving us any money right now for this. But the question right now is, do we want to talk about an executive session? Do you want to move forward tonight, right now, or do you want to move forward after an executive session? And
So
just-
I would have a question, but I don't know if we're gonna do an executive session, I'd wait for that. Whatever everyone else decides though, but or should I just ask it now?
Why don't you ask it now? And if I blanch, I'm gonna say, let's go into an executive session.
Okay, so no, my question is, and forgive my ignorance, I don't know much about litigation and this type of thing, but so is Mr. Sullivan's firm the only one handling cases like this? Or could the borough potentially get like a better bargain with another? No offense personally, but I don't know anything about this, so.
Very good question. So, Mr. Sullivan, is any other firms in New Jersey handling cases in New Jersey?
There are two answers or there's a couple of questions there. I'll break it down. I don't know what other firms are entering, what percentages are being entered into. Okay. I would say that my belief is 1/3 is probably the minimal standard. I'm aware of some firms in other states charging 40%. As to the answer of, are there other firms in the state that are handling this litigation? There are other firms representing municipalities in this state. My view is we are the only New Jersey law firm primarily handling the litigation. There are some New Jersey law firms that are acting as local counsel for out-of-state law firms. The majority of the law firms handling these cases are other state attorneys. So Wilentz, again, is the only New Jersey-based firm that is primary counsel for these cases.
Mayor, I have another question.
Go ahead.
That brought up. Mr. Sullivan, suppose Flemington were not to proceed and receives a notice as to be part of the class later, as you described. What would Flemington's obligation be to pay fees under that circumstance?
It's a partial, I don't know yet. The reason being is the way the agreement between 3M was created, as well as the motion to approve preliminary approval, is that there will be a separate motion to award attorneys' fees. How that will be structured, I don't even know yet. Now, there's a tax that every plaintiff in an MDL, and we call it a tax, it can go by, you could have different names for it. I'm using a tax. Every plaintiff in the case is going to have to pay some amount into the MDL for the time already spent on the case. What that is going to be, will be likely 9%, but there are going to be additional costs and fees probably added on to that. How everything is going to work between personal counsel, MDL counsel, lead counsel, the MDL costs, I don't have that answer because the motion has not been filed yet. So I don't know how all that is going to play in, if the court is going to cap how much in total can be taken out in fees and costs, or some other type of hybrid analysis.
That certainly answers the question. I know.
Yeah, I wish I for my own part, I wish I knew. But that's something that we are waiting on as well.
I know Councilman Long is eager to proceed here, and I certainly appreciate that.
So, yeah, I was gonna ask Kristen, so first what I heard you say is that this.
Tony, can you talk into the microphone, please?
No, then you'll hear what I'm saying.
Thank you.
No, so one of the things that you said was that this company, this law firm, you've
Tony,
had
I don't
experience
think
with.
they can hear you.
Still,
Sorry, yeah, they're making.
then I don't know what's wrong with my
Can
microphone.
you just put it right to the speaker?
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. So you said that you were, that this law firm is a reputable law firm and you know them in this type of litigation.
Yeah, I mean, not to Mr. Sullivan's horn, but the Wilentz Law Firm is well known in many areas, many cases with them over the years. I've no issue with the firm at all, great firm.
But to
Brendan firm.
Liz's point then, so are there other law firms that are just as capable as this in your,
So I think Mr. Sullivan, I will agree with Councilman Parker. I mean, in this matter, the New Jersey firm, right? Mr. Sullivan is Willets. They're the ones that are handled. There are firms across the country, probably on a state-by-state basis, perhaps more than that. But he's made a representation to the council, and I'm sure it's true that Willets is the only firm in New Jersey in this game right now. Is that correct? That's what I thought I heard you say. So.
Yeah, again, there are certain limited law firms that are what we would call local counsel. So they have gone out, retained the municipality, and then I don't want to speak, I never disparage and please don't imply. They then essentially hand over the litigation to another law firm that handles it primarily. Our law firm is not just local counsel, we are counsel. So when we file a complaint, it's our name it's my name in particular, but it's our law firm name handling the case. When we prepare the plaintiff fact sheet, it's our law firm that is working with the township, the water department, on preparing the plaintiff fact sheet. When it comes time to work on the claim form, it will be our law firm who will work with the township on completing that form and getting it into the appropriate entity or entities. And the other, there's what the expectation is. There's going to be more potential settlements. There's also a bankruptcy right now. One defendant has declared bankruptcy, so there's going to be claim issues there as well. But we are, as far as I know, again, there could be
Which defendant has declared bankruptcy?
what defendant, it's Kitty Fenwall, KIDDE Fenwall. They declared bankruptcy on May 4th of this year. So they're very much in the early stages. There is a stay as part of the bankruptcy proceeding. There's a stay right now against Kitty Fenwall.
I think that's a lot of details that we don't need at this point. So thank you. But Mr. Corsini, do you have any other questions?
I don't have any other questions. I know that Councilman Long is anxious to move forward here. I still would recommend a chat about this stuff. Just a brief one. I have no issue with Willets at all. Make that very clear. I think.
Would you be okay if we just go have it at the very next
Yeah.
executive session? All right, so we're gonna amend the agenda to have an executive session at the end for purpose of potential litigation. There will probably be action taken after the executive session. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, can I just ask one question of Mr. Sullivan before we wrap up?
Sure.
So between American Water, Passaic Valley Water, the other municipalities you mentioned in Bergen County, do you have an estimate idea of the population of New Jersey that represents? I mean, you're talking highly populated areas. I know American Water is widespread throughout the state.
I don't have an exact amount. I would have to go back into my notes at my office, not my home office, where I could pull up, for example, water provider numbers that we have that we're representing. But given the amount that New Jersey Water represents as terms of customers, we're speaking of large.
Hold on. There's like too many people talking. I'm getting interference from somebody in Borough Hall.
We're talking millions.
We're talking hundreds of thousands of customers. So a lot of the numbers are customers. So a home may have 4 or 5 people living in it, but it's considered one customer. So there's hundreds of thousands of customers between those particular clients of ours. And if you add in all the numbers, I would expect it to be into the millions of individuals that are serviced by those companies.
Right. So it's a large percentage of the population of
Yes.
New Jersey. That was the point I was trying to make, that you're just not taking small municipalities like the Flemington Borough. You are representing a majority of the state in the suit.
Well, I don't want to overstate our case, but we were representing New Jersey American Water, which is the largest water provider. There are some other large private water providers, but New Jersey American Water is the largest.
Right.
Passaic Valley Water Commission also has
It's
substantial.
huge.
The other one that I did not mention is Morris County Municipal Utilities Authority, which also represents multiple municipalities in the Morris County area.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
We're gonna-
All right. Well, thank you for your time. If you have other questions, please feel free to either call me or send me an email.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Under mayor's report, I just have a couple of things. I just wanted to let the council know, sadly, we lost two more constituents since we met last. Ron Cozy, a longtime police officer and lieutenant here in the borough, and much to council president and my surprise and sadness, Kathy DeLuca, the spouse of our Shade Tree Commissioner, Mike DeLuca. He passed away just before our last meeting, but we were not aware of it. Yeah. And the only other thing I want to just discuss briefly is that on Thursday, the council president and I / police commissioner met over at the police building, the new police building, with our architect Angela Gonzalez from PSNS and the chief of police. We met with the facilities staff who are active law enforcement from the Department of Corrections, who are the people who are our first layer of getting through on renovation over there. They brought forward a lot of concerns about renovating this building. We've engaged at Angela's request, the architect's request, Remington Vernick, to look at what kind of whether the concrete block of the building is hollow or filled, and there's a concrete floor in between the upstairs and downstairs, where they need to also put ventilation and conduit, and there's a lot of issues. So, you know, it's an increasing cost concern to get this space finished. And though in the first, I don't know what, 6 business days since we engaged them, PSNS had provided full drawings and a full plan of what this was going to look like. So they're moving very quickly. They're continuing to move quickly to get biddable documents with an estimate, but whether or not we'll be able to bid it with the funds on hand remains to be seen. Renovations are really, really expensive, and the sergeant from the corrections department said when he got there, I didn't realize that this was a renovation. I thought you were building new. He was pretty surprised. So, and taken back. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Council President, on that. Okay. All right. Having said that, I don't think I have anything else. If I think of it, I will.
Just so you know, Malik is on.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he was waiting, but he just told me he was.
Okay, great. Thank you. Council reports, Council President.
Just very brief. So courts, all this disbursement reports have been completed and updated from January through June. There's a ton of work to be done, but now the report has been turned into a shared service for Brereton Township. Everything's pretty much on target. Things appear to be running smoothly. As I learn more about the courts, I'll have much more details in future reports. As far as the police department, the only thing I have for them is a fundraiser event for the K9 unit. And that will be on August 2nd. It's Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. at Chick-fil-A, and portions of the proceeds will be donated directly to our K9 unit. So that's it. That's our report.
Thank you, Council Vice President Tilly.
I'm a little under the weather today, so I'm just going to keep this real quick, but look out for Tony's newsletter, the new borough newsletter, because the HPC has a very important announcement that we're going to make through the newsletter. So Tony, we'll make sure that we get you that announcement and article and everything that you need for that, and just keep an eyeball out for it. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilman Parker.
Yeah, I have a couple of things, but one, I'm gonna engage Robin with, and then I'll make a comment, but before we do that, one of the things that we, Robin and I talked about, I understand that there's flowers that go up, hanging baskets that go up around town. I think because of the weather and the climate, this is kind of a usual type of exercise, because I just know keeping up with my plants in the whole bit is just, it's just insurmountable, right? So what we opt to do is to wait until the fall and use that time to put up and do a beautification project at that time. I just don't think it's the right time to do it. We just don't know what the weather is going to be like, and I mean, we're burning up around the country, around the world, actually. The other thing is that I want to address what happened on Thursday at the FCP, at the Sip and Stroll. So Robin, you go first, and then I'll go. Please.
Sure. I really hate to interfere with Councilman Barker's report, but that would technically be out of order.
Oh, for her to do this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Should I just do it myself?
So I want to get you to where you want to be, but
We can wait till public comments.
yeah, but also I don't want to interrupt Councilman Parker's flow. So,
All right, well,
Um,
I could just do my thing and she could do hers.
is that okay?
I'm fine.
Yeah, I don't want to cause a
I'm fine
problem.
with that. But I do need her to say that. All right,
Yeah,
so here,
you have the chance in public. I don't want to mess around.
Not a problem, not a problem. Thank you for bringing this back. But, okay, so, we have this sip and stroll that has been pretty successful, over since April. I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Thank you. Can you hear me now? Since April, and it's been pretty successful, and it's been great turnout. So this past sip and stroll, there were people that were invited, and there was an incident where there was a truck with a Confederate flag and a woman who was making sexual innuendos. And here's what I have to say, because this is extremely, extremely disturbing. It's disturbing on so many levels. When a person of color sees a Confederate flag that says racist, right off the bat, there's no even comment on it. It's called racism. And so at the end of the day, and there were kids there, and there were kids of color there. Now, I am telling you, there is not a person of color, doesn't matter what nationality they are, that has not faced some type of racism, overt or subtle. So I can't imagine, I remember being a kid and something like that happening to me. And to this day, it carries me. So I can't imagine them going back and telling their parents what happened. We have been trying to make this an inclusive type of community. And for something to allow someone to come into this community to do that type of hatred is totally unacceptable, and I won't tolerate it. And I am hoping that everybody who's listening to me will stand up against this and say it's not happening. Hold on. What exacerbates this is that there is a business owner who was perpetuating this, whether they knew about it or not. They invited the people and they didn't try to shut it down. That to me is the biggest freaking insult ever. I will not have it. I won't live in a community like that. I won't visit a community like that. And I am not going to bring people into this community if that happens. This is an insult. We live in a community that is, you know what? I love my neighbors. I love my neighbors and they love me. So I know it's not the entire, it didn't even have anything to do with the community. It was someone that was allowed to come into the community to disrupt it like that. And to me, that's just totally, that is beyond my comprehension, beyond my comprehension. And I am hoping, and let's make it very clear, FCP had nothing to do with this. And I'm hoping the business owners in Stengel go after this person as well, because I'm going after this person. And if I have to get other organizations to go after this person, we are, because this is just hatred. You know what? I'm tired of being tired of hatred. I'm tired of this white supremacy act. I am tired of it. I don't want to live, I want to close my door and open my door and walk down the street and not feel as though I'm going to be threatened. I just, that is, I can't even wrap my head around this, right? I've never had that happening in a community in which I live. It's something that you read about, I've experienced it, I've had it, I've seen it done, et cetera, et cetera. But in my own community, it's just not tolerable. It's just not tolerable. So I am hoping that the council hears this. And I'm hoping that all of you guys stand up with this and you say something about it and you get your neighbors to say something about it and we address this, because it's not going to be swept under the rug. I won't let it be swept under the rug. It's not, okay, I understand, It's what are we going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? And what do we do with the business owner that allowed this to happen? What do we do? That's the question. And I don't want to hear words, I just want to hear action, because that dictates whether I'm going to sit in this seat from now on or not. And I'm not threatening anyone, believe me, I am not. I'm just, I hope you understand my frustration, my anger, and my disappointment in this. I've heard this not only from me, I've heard it from other people. This is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I can see if it was just a Yahoo that came in, but a business owner to have this happen is unbelievable. What the hell does that say to us? Now, I can handle myself, believe me, because Tony Parker loves Tony Parker. There's no question about it. My self-esteem. I have no issues with my self-esteem. Take my word for it. Anybody who knows me will tell you his self-esteem is not at question at all. But I'm worried about a kid that sees this. And I'm also worried, here's the thing. I was at a meeting with NAACP and I have been working with them to bring them into the community. I've been working with the Latino and Hispanic community because I'm trying to get it to be inclusive. And thank God that they did not come that night. Thank God they did not come, because I'm telling you that would have held the pay for all of us. And I'm also afraid of, this is when we had an open session, the forum that we had last year with the Latino and Hispanic community. They voiced this. They voiced this. And so we're asking why, how come that we can't, how do we get them involved? How do we do? They voiced that this was happening. They said this. What do we say to them? What do we say? So that's my thing. I have to tell you, I lost sleep over this for 3 nights because I would just wake up and this haunted me because I know what racism looks like. And I've been exposed to racism and I've been exposed to ignorance. It hasn't changed me as a person. It does make your antenna go up. It makes your antenna go up. And so I am, I'm just perplexed and I'm very, very disappointed and I'm very angry. And let me be very clear on this. Do not have the newspaper call me for more comments. We are not going to say sensationalize this, and we are not going to give these people a platform. I just want to make that very clear to you. So do not ask me any other questions about this. Do not go and ask any other questions about this, and do not sensationalize this. It's not going to happen. We're not giving these people a platform. I've said what I've had to say. It's on record. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. I think when Robin ended the public portion, we talked about even before the event, how what is otherwise has been a softly, gently growing community family event was hijacked from the FCP. So I think when we get to the public portion, you can address that. Ms. Rossetti, you have any reports tonight?
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I just, as you alluded to earlier, I do want to extend my sincere condolences to Mike DeLuca and family. Beyond that, just there will not be a Shade Tree Commission meeting in August, so the next one will be September 13th at 7 p.m. And that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Just so that you know, Mike was over for dinner last night. We had Mike and his family over for dinner last night, and he did tell me that you guys are working on a article.
Yes. Thank you, Tony.
Okay. Ms. Engelhardt?
Hi, okay, as far as the schools go, the Fleming Raritan School District Board of Ed meeting is actually running concurrently to ours tonight. So you can watch that over on YouTube after it's at once it's posted. The high school district meeting was, the next meeting is August 21st at 7 p.m. The last meeting they had last week, there was one interesting thing that I wanted to mention. The high school district specifically called out Raritan Township during the meeting, and reminded them that they needed to make sure with all development work that there was safe passage for walkable students to the high school. So just wanted to bring that up, and that we, all the people that are on redevelopment committees, make sure that we keep that in mind when we are working with developers. The other item that the other committee that I had interaction with last week was the Fleming Museum House. Unfortunately, I was on vacation, so I wasn't able to join into their meeting, but I did forward my comments to their agenda, and they were very welcoming. So I'm excited to work with them on that committee. And they're a very active group in town, and they have activities almost every month. And they've decided to add something last minute to their agenda this year. So look for a sunflowers in colonial America kind of educational program coming up in the next few weeks, hopefully. So that was that. And of course, the planning board meeting is tomorrow night in that room, 7 p.m. And I will be joining virtually again tomorrow. And I think that's all I've got.
Thank you. Johnston, are you still there? You went black on us.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Report tonight?
It's malfunctioning. No report this week. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're up to public comment session number 1. Try to keep it brief. Robin, you want to? And if there's anybody from the public as well online, like Robin. Want to talk about the FCP being hijacked?
Sorry for my back. Oh, yeah. Is this working? I don't think it's on. Any thoughts?
Take one of the microphones from.
Yeah.
I think probably, yeah, I don't know if I can stretch it though, unfortunately.
It should go over there. Planning board uses them over there. You can take any of these. What about this one?
Thank you.
Thank you. So I got this in my mailbox on Thursday, the day of the sip and stroll. It's the Hunterdon Observer. Let's do that. And this is the article that was written by NewJersey.com.
Sometimes they deliver in Flemington and sometimes they deliver in part of Flemington and sometimes they don't deliver at all.
Well,
So I do not get one.
I'm Robin Lapidus, the executive director of the Flemington Community Partnership, and I do live in Clinton Township, where I did get this in my driveway, and I don't usually get to it before it rains. So I was really excited to see it, and it says, "Sip and Stroll whips up some community pride in Flemington." And then it says, "Seasonal events in the historic county seat show what's possible when a community works together for a common good." And it is just glowing, and it has fabulous pictures of kids. We have, as we always do, tweaked the event as it goes along, because it's very hard when you have an event once a year like Corn, Tomato, and Beer to really implement, to learn and identify best practices and change things for the next year. This is a once a month event. And I really believe strongly that a once a month event and some regularity, some feeling that it's Thursday night, it's the third Thursday, hallelujah, I can go to Stangel and see people I know and have an ice cream, walk my dog, have a drink, an adult beverage if you're of age and you're following the rules. There's a lot of freedom and a lot of community in that. So, you know, we, as you said, we've been really building something. We had April, May, June, and this was July. So this is only our fourth one. But this article happened to be in the Trenton Times. It happened to be in the county section of the Star Ledger of Middlesex, Morris, and Ocean. And it was the cover of the Hunterdon Observer, and then the Hunterdon Democrat, and then this. So it really had legs as well as being NewJersey.com. So, you know, we entertain all interesting ideas, and we do ask the business community to help us develop the program for the night. And then we did have a suggestion about racing. It's summer, and you know, there's a history of racing in Flemington, and that is really how that idea came into being. It was kind of like sort of blessed, but not fully blessed. It was left a little too wide open without definition to how would everything work, and that won't ever happen again. So my apologies as your Flemington Community Partnership Executive Director and event producer for not towing a harder line. You know, there were a lot of people we know who have race cars. There's a lot of people we know who love Flemington racing history. There were a lot of people who showed up with bikes and motorcycles. There was a lot of science, technology, and cool racing going on. And then there were numerous emails and very upset people who said things like, I'm here with my friends, they're people of color, and they're really uncomfortable, and what do I say to them as a business owner? There were letters and emails. There were some people who bravely decided to ask questions of this person with a rather large Confederate flag, you know, and they wrote to me too to say, but people really want to know if we had condoned this, if we had invited this, if we were responsible, and how did we, you know, how did we handle it? How are we going to handle it? So that's really what happened. So the business that sponsored the racing aspect, we've spoken to them, many of their neighbors have spoken to them, and they are going around to everyone in the neighborhood to I think apologize for uncomfortable feelings and for what happened. And that is happening currently as we speak. So, you know, I feel really sad and really sorry. I too lost sleep, because when you get, you know, reviews like this, to have anybody come and show up in a way that is the absolute opposite of what this is about. And, you know, I Googled NASCAR banned Confederate flags at any event in any advertising. And I think, I forget what year, but it was years ago.
No, before that, 16 or 17.
Yeah, 2015
16 or 17.
And yes, and you know, this has been a Texas, can't say that one, Supreme Court issue about license plates. I mean, this is so much bigger than the tiny town of Flemington, that for it to show up at a sip and stroll as a controversial issue and a place where people, you know, really, I really believe in my heart of hearts that we make community feel really good. You know, we make people feel safe, we make them feel joyful, we give them something to be awed by. You know, I've done parades and with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you know, nothing feels as authentic and joyful as a Flemington parade. So to have this pedestrian event become about something other than what it says we were doing in here is really sad. So a couple things, we will review the rules of lids and cars and what kind of event is this? This is, we talk about walkability all the time. This is a walkable event. We will not have car shows in the future at our events. We have a fabulous car show on Main Street. That's where the car show should stay. Stangle's dark, people cross back and forth. You know, it's really not for cars and parades and other things. You know, we did have some rules, or we had an expectation that there was some order to how the racing cars would be, would drive in, would sit. They were not supposed to drive around. The person with the flag drove around. You know, we have since discovered that we want to have a detailed police at our event because we do have so many kids and high schoolers that we just want to be sure that everyone knows that there's a presence and that it's safe and that we have somebody really nearby if we do need to call someone. So, you know, I think the sanctity of the event is something we can preserve, and that the rules can be made more clear. And that's really.
Robin, I'm gonna say this. Sure. This is not the ownership of this is not on you. You've done a great job of putting this together. And and I feel bad because you've worked so hard to do this. So don't take the responsibility for this because this is not your responsibility. All right. This is outside of your realm.
Getting her mushy.
This is outside of your right. I get you. Because I feel bad as well. But I don't want this. You don't.
I don't,
take blame.
no, I don't, but I love our businesses and I love our community, and I don't want, you know, it was very sad to hear young business owners being frightened, being unsure of how to handle everything, you know, it just blew it up.
Everything's a teachable moment. We
Yeah.
know better now, we know how to do better, but it doesn't matter if that car show, if there was a car show on Main Street or this happened here.
Yeah.
That's easily happened on Main Street as well, right?
Sure.
So the bottom line is, how do you invite people in your community to allow this to happen? That's really the issue, right?
Mhm.
So if we denounce that is never going to happen and we're not gonna, and we're gonna hold people accountable for it, then we have some control over it, right?
Yep,
But let's separate the two. One has nothing to do with you. You've done a yeoman's job. Everything it's like gold and people talk about it and you made the newspapers. And so let's focus on that for you.
yes.
This other nonsense, I'll focus on that.
I have some thoughts on this that I can share with Councilman Parker.
Please.
Not right now. But I have a few thoughts.
You know, this is clearly about courageous conversations, and I believe that they're already starting to happen around figuring out where to go from here.
Well, and I think as a council, the council needs to draw the line in the sand on this as well. It's not just about you or me, it's about the whole community, and it's about legislation for that community, right? So it takes a village. And I just don't want people to feel uncomfortable in where they live. That just can't happen. Those days are gone.
Right,
Those days
the message has to be kindness, has to constantly be kindness. And, you know, the.
In
rules
unity,
and
in
unity
unity.
and the.
You know, it doesn't matter about your politics. I don't know if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. That it matters not. Ideology is something completely different. It's completely different. It has to do with the person. It has to do with how do we move forward as a community. I can't rule the outside of this community, but I can inside the community and say what we won't tolerate. So thank you, Robin.
Thank you. I've well exceeded my 3 minutes, I think, but,
Stick it out, we can have another 3 meeting.
well, just on other note, we did have another amazing article about the Jacob Francis
Yes.
event, which also was a cover of the Trenton Times. And so, you know, we're hitting all these really high notes and we're creating incredibly brilliant events that really showcase what we have to offer in terms of our community and our businesses and our collaboration. So it is very positive. We do have the Corn, Tomato and Beer Festival, which is beyond sold out. Yes, and beyond sold out in a very timely fashion. And we're all really, we thank the new staff members who jumped in to the ocean boiling with a whole lot of changes and new deadlines, but we've really met almost all those thresholds, and I'm really proud and excited that it gives us more time to plan the other things.
And just so that for all the council, one of the things that Robin brought up to me, if there's any way that we can help Robin by volunteering,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's for an hour at the festival, it's greatly appreciated. I know that I'm having a fundraiser on that same day, but you got me for 2 hours.
Okay,
It has
we'll
to be
take
more.
And then just to, we are moving the Stengel Open Air Gallery, which was brand new and event funded, grant funded, and is by the Groundhog Kiln, kind of near Humdu. And we've had Dave Norton's photographs of Flemington from dusk to dawn. And our next show is called From Flemington to Infinity and Beyond. And it's Les Tilley and Jimmy Roselli, who are part of the New Jersey Astronomical Photography Club or Group Association. And they have these incredible photos of stars and nebulas and planets and celestial things that are incredible. I think Kim maybe has, I think Kim is has a background of a nebula as seen from Flemington. But these are being produced now. So our next sip and stroll is the dog days and starry nights of summer, and we will have hopefully have a big telescope, and it'll be dark enough to see the sky. But the real purpose is culture, arts, education, and community. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks,
Keep up
Robin.
the great work.
Yep.
All right, there are no minutes to approve tonight. There will be sooner or later when you probably figured it out. Okay, consent agenda, we have a resolution authorizing contract with RNS Landscape to abate public safety hazards at 217 South Main Street and authorizing the tax collector to lien the property. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Parker, second.
All in favor? Actually,
Aye.
I should do a roll call because it's money. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Councilman Johnston,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Vice President Tilly,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Under the regular agenda, approving fire department application for Robert Wall. Can I have a motion, please?
Tilly will move.
One second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
we have to do that. not money.
Probably not. We could probably just. Oh, can I, any opposed? All in favor?
Just a
Okay.
minute.
All right.
Aye.
Number two is
Aye.
a contract for animal control services with Animal Control Solutions. I sent you all an email on this. Can I have a motion to enter into this contract?
Tilly will move.
One second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Johnston,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Council Vice President Tilly,
Yes.
Yes.
Number three, authorizing the purchase of 2 vehicles from National Auto Fleet through Sourcewell Co-op contract 091521 NAF for the Department of Public Works as part of the budget. Can I have a motion to approve?
Tilly will move.
Second,
Parker, second.
discussion? Roll call?
Councilman Johnston,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes,
Council Vice President Tilly,
Yes,
Yes.
Number 4 is the introduction of ordinance, first reading, amending chapter 98-3, construction permit fees to modify various fee amounts. Our new construction official, John Tillotson, is here to answer questions. Can I have a motion to introduce? Is there a second?
Parkinson.
Any discussion or questions for Mr. Tillotson?
Could you just give us a basic, just,
How far behind are we in everybody else's fees in the county, John?
I don't know everybody else's, but we were egregious. Bringing it to.
Yeah, we haven't, I don't think we've had a fee increase in
No.
more than a decade.
No, and we're not out of line with the new. We're not ahead of everybody. It's a new one.
We're still behind, we're still
A
behind.
little bit, and
Okay.
I think that's legitimate. I think we should move slow, right? I didn't do anything with the other subcodes. I don't want to get it up too high to where we're taking in too much money. Because if we take in too much money for 3 years, the DCA will audit us and say you have to abate.
Okay.
So we're supposed to be funded by the permit fee, not by the taxpayers.
A lot of times fall behind without even realizing they fall in line. And then one day they would get a guy like John comes in and they're like, hey.
Well, I mean, John did the work. Jeff Klein told me in January that they needed to be increased, but I don't know why he didn't do that last
So you
year.
have these developers coming into town, they're gonna develop your town. None of these fees are gonna go.
I'm sorry, John, I'm having a hard time hearing him. Can we get him a microphone, please? I'm sorry.
So we have the developers coming into this town, developing the town. And their permit fees are very low. They're gonna develop and they're gonna pay little. The taxpayer is gonna have to pay our salaries or parts of our salaries under that situation, which they shouldn't have to do. Because some of those taxpayers may not want this developed. But that's besides the point. The point is that for a construction office should be funded by the permit fees. Right, and I hope to get it to where we're even every year, not too far over. I'd rather be a little over rather than a little under. But I figured the building part was the most out of touch. So the other ones were kind of consistent with what I've seen in other towns. I just left Alexandria. I knew what theirs was, and I also compared them to Bridgewater. Bridgewater, their building fees are higher than ours, but their other fees are lower. Like their mechanical fees are very low, and we're trying to get them up.
Anybody else have any other questions for John?
I just want to make a comment. I don't necessarily know if this is I don't want people to think this is a reaction to just new development in town, but I think John's goal, and I heard the same thing, was that our fees overall were not equal or on par with similar sized municipalities. So no matter whether it's a small project or a large project, the fees are based on square footage. So you're not, is that correct, John?
So new, as far as the building subcode, the new buildings are based on cubic feet volume.
Sorry, volume, not square footage. Sorry.
Operations are, I'm asking for $30 per thousand of cost.
Right. So it's either based on
Kitchen.
volume or the overall value of the renovation. So either way, the size of the renovation or the size of the new construction is reflected in those fees. So I just want it to be clear to the general public that these fees it's not, the inspiration isn't necessarily because of any specific development coming in, but it's across the board, even and equal, for it, just to bring us in the same level of fees as other places. You know, the other size municipalities of equal size.
We haven't had an increase in,
And we haven't had an increase in 10 years. I think I think that says it all.
Yeah.
Like
And if the development that's coming in gets its purpose, that this town's gonna take off.
well,
This is one of the infrastructure that should be in place prior to that.
and you have a lot of inspections to do for a large, and it's not necessarily covering costs it should cover.
Well, yes, I have not done the audit of the office to see what the expenses are versus the incoming money, but I guarantee you we're in the red.
Right,
Yeah,
and under DCA rules,
Well, the
construction office is
DCA, the
supposed to-
DCA doesn't say that the permit fees have to fund the whole construction.
But they allow
If
for it,
you want to have your tax dollars go to our office, that's up to you.
but they do allow for it, they do
Not
allow
the-
us to make enough money to cover the expenses.
Right, what they guard against is us making too much money. In other words, now using that office as a moneymaker for the general fund and skimming off the top. They try to guard against that. And like if I exact penalties for work without permit or there's other things that I have teeth to exact penalties. The penalties cannot go to our salaries. So if I want to raise, I can just get all these penalties out there, and then all this money comes in, I can ask you for a raise, and they guard against that. The Construction Code Act was written in 1977, and it was written to try to keep politics out of the office so that we can do our job without that political pressure. That's why I get a 4-year appointment. You appointed me. So I mean, you can make my life miserable, so I leave, but I would have to do something really bad for you to fire me. In 4 years, you can decide not to renew me. That's how it's written.
Yeah, well, unless we were married, I'm not making your life miserable.
No, and I'm not gonna give you any reason to. I'm gonna do my job in a fair way.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Tillotson, for John?
John, it's great to meet you. We have the chance to meet.
Yes, sir, thank you.
We'll be
You
all
also,
You'll be available for the public hearing in 2 weeks?
for,
For this, when it's a public hearing? I mean, you can call in by Zoom.
I can come.
You can come. Okay.
Yeah, I told you that there'd be some extracurricular.
Okay. Can I have a roll call, please?
Oh, wait, first do a motion.
I got a motion in a second, we're in discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman
okay.
Johnson,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Council VP Tilly,
Yes.
Council President Long,
Yes.
And the public hearing will be on August. That's a really good question. 11th, is it? 11th? Is it the 11th? Does we have the calendar up? My cell phone's off.
Send me an email, I'll be there.
I got to announce it publicly. Thank you. August 14th, there we go. After the Corn and Tomato Festival.
you're ready.
Okay, public hearing will be August 14th. Thank you so much, John.
Okay, I'm gonna go home and get dinner. I'll see you.
Okay. Next, we're introducing an ordinance amending chapter 7A titled Parking Regulations of the Borough of Flemington. This is to add, remove a regular parking to a parking space on Main Street. Can I have a motion to introduce? Is there a second?
Tilly, I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilman Johnson,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Council VP Tilly,
Yes.
Yes.
Again, public hearing will be August 14th in this room. Number 6 is a duplicate of number 4. So that can be stricken from the agenda. Number 7 is a resolution setting the salaries for the borough employees. I had a conversation with our CFO, Bill Hans, who's behind that wall right now. A better way to do set salaries in a municipality in Flemington used to do it this way for some reason, stopped doing this way, I don't know, a decade ago or something, is we really should have a salary ordinance in place that gives ranges of salaries. And then we could just do a simple resolution every year that just, sets the non-union salaries. But this way, if we have an opening, like for a clerk, somebody can look at our range and see what a low and high range is. This is the first time I've ever seen a municipality not have one of those. So we're gonna do a little bit next year, but for now, I have a motion to approve the salaries for the borough employees. If you have any questions, Bill is available. There a motion?
I'll remove.
Tilly second.
Any discussion or questions for Bill? Seeing none, roll call please.
Councilman Johnston,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Council VP Tilly,
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
And then finally, we have authorizing the hiring of Patrick Rinaldi as a temporary zoning officer. This is according to our new technical assistant, MacGyver. We have maybe 2 hours or less a week in zoning issues. Mostly she can handle them, but the odd chance that she can't, this would allow this gentleman who she's had experience to come in. I do want to thank her and township for the shared service agreement, but it was really kind of overkill for what we really need. It's only a month. John did sign up, who just left. He did sign up to get his certification in September as our zoning official. So hopefully in September he'll have that and we won't need a temp at all. Can I have a motion to approve?
Engelhardt, motion.
Is there a second?
Johnson.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to, on behalf of the planning board, thank you for putting this on the agenda. I know what I had brought this to your attention a couple weeks ago of the clerk's concerns. We just want to make sure that we're not holding up or, making sure every application is seen in a timely manner. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Councilman Johnston,
Yes.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
You, Carla.
You're my,
No, you got one right in front of you.
where?
Right on the table. I can see it.
Oh, that one? I gotta sit by the computer because.
Just pull it over closer to you.
So,
Yeah,
ready?
you already have Mr. Johnson said yes.
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Council VP Tilly,
Yes.
President Long.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that better? Oh,
Public comment.
Not that time it wasn't.
We're back to public comment session number 2. I don't know if anybody online has any questions or comments. If anybody here wants to come back for round 2, thank you for saying no. Okay, payment of bills, authorizing payment of the bills in the amount of $359,825.68. Can I have a motion, please?
Tilly will move.
Engelhardt, second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Johnson,
Yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Jen, I'm here, Susan, you say yes?
Sorry, I
You,
sneezed.
you can't hear her.
Yeah, yes. You know what, Kim, I put earbuds in and that helped me a little bit. Hear them better.
Oh, I don't have earbuds.
Council VP Tilly,
Yes.
And all of you who are online, don't forget to come in and sign certifications, and there's actually 2, because last meeting it was missed by some. All right, so can I have a motion to go into executive session for the item of potential litigation? It shouldn't take long, and action most likely will be taken afterwards. Can I have a motion, please? Is there a
Tilly will
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
So I can give Robin a tissue.
open that down, just.
So we're back in open session. So I'll see if anybody wants to make the motion.
Yeah, I'd like to, motion to appoint special counsel related to the PFAS litigation to Relance. And after the discussion we had with Mr. Sullivan, I'd like to motion that we do that.
Is there a second?
One second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Johnston,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rossetti,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes,
Council VP Tilly,
Yes,
Council President Long.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Engelhardt moves.
Good night, everybody. I hope Kim and Susan feel better.
Thank you.
Dark arrows, we're gonna call you.
Well, you know, my first 6 months was fine.